We have the zechus of hearing today from a world-renowned Talmid Chacham, but it's a special zechus for here for us at Yeshivas Bais Aharon, because Rabbi Krohn, Shlita, he was very close with my great-grandfather, who the yeshiva is named after, Mr. Aharon Rosenbaum. Mr. Rosenbaum was a pioneer in Jewish education. Rabbi Krohn saw the fruits of his labor firsthand. Rabbi Krohn's mother, I believe, and Mr. Rosenbaum's wife were very close friends, and Rabbi Krohn is a very close family friend of my family, the center Mishpacha. And when I saw that Rabbi Krohn was coming to North Miami Beach for Shabbos, I immediately called up all of my center relatives and said, what could we do to get Rabbi Krohn to come to our yeshiva, because it's such a zechus and we can't let the opportunity slip through our fingers. And I've heard many times different stories that have inspired me. I got to spend a few Shabbatos together with Rabbi Krohn, together in different places, and I left those Shabbatos very inspired. And I'm really hoping that when we listen to what it is that Rabbi Krohn is going to let us know today, we're also going to be extremely inspired. So please, without further ado, please let's listen to Rabbi Krohn.
I can't begin to explain to you how happy I am to be in this place. When Rabbi Schwartz called me, this Mr. Dagme works me to the bone. When I come to Miami, this guy's got like 20 speeches lined up. And then I hear Rabbi Schwartz, he wants another speech. And I'm thinking, I'm really pretty busy when I'm coming here. But as soon as he said the name of the school, Bais Aharon and Rosenbaum, my heart melted. And I said, no matter what, I'm coming here. Now let me just tell you why I feel so close to all of you, and why all of you should be so proud that you're in this yeshiva, because what I'm going to tell you today really can change your life. Now let me just tell you that when I was a little boy, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old, my father, Olav Shalom, and Mr. Aharon Rosenbaum were very, very close friends. My father was a mohel. I've been a mohel for many, many years. And Mr. Rosenbaum had called my father to do the brisses for his sons. But he lived not in New York. He lived in a place, I never even heard of a place, Weehawken, New Jersey. And it was over the Lincoln Tunnel, over the George Washington Bridge. And he started a school there. And it was amazing, the school that he started. And many, many boys who didn't come from religious families, somehow they were welcomed in that school. And my mother, who I was very close to, as you will hear, was the closest friend of Mrs. Rosenbaum. They used to write letters to each other. They called each other. They would never, ever speak in public. As much as I'm a public person, that's how they were private people. But they were very close, and they wrote letters, that beautiful handwritings, and they were very tight. Now, I'll tell you a great story about Aharon and Rosenbaum and Rosalind Rosenbaum. This happened in the 1940s, shortly after the school started. It was on a Friday, and the weather seemed nice when all the kids came to school. But sometimes you have a sudden snowstorm, and it came out of nowhere, and nobody was expecting it. And now they had about 40 to 45 kids in the school, and nobody could get home because the snow was so heavy. And the buses weren't prepared, and the parents lived far away from the school. So it's hard to believe, but some people told me, they were elderly people already, that the greatest thing they ever remember from Aharon Rosenbaum's school was that Friday. What happened, he and his wife came to the school, and they took all the 45 kids into their house for Shabbos. Could you imagine having 45 kids in your house for Shabbos when you didn't prepare for them? So somehow they were able to feed them. And there are people who say that Shabbos, that the parents couldn't even get to the house. That was amazing. And they fed them, and they sang, and they had a Shabbos of their lives. So that's who Aharon and Rosalind Rosenbaum were. But how did Aharon get it from? Every time when I meet a great person, one of the first things that I ask him is, tell me about your parents. Greatness doesn't come from no place. Greatness comes from great parents. And if you have great parents, or if all of you will become great parents, you're going to have great children because they learn from a role model. Listen to this. I once asked Aaron about this story, and he told me the most fascinating thing. When he was a little kid, his father, his name was Reb David, I believe, right? Reb David. And you'll see something personal in a few moments. So Reb David had a house that all the guests that came to New Jersey, they would come to his house because they knew you could eat in his house. It was kosher, it was no problem. So one time there was a big Rosh Yeshiva, tremendous tzaddik, that was coming to raise money for his yeshiva in Israel. And he stayed in Brooklyn, but he heard that David Rosenbaum, that's Aaron's father, is a person that gives a lot of tzedakah, and you could eat at his house. So he asked if he could come. He asked if he could come to that shul. And sure enough, he came to the shul, and Friday night, everybody walked with David Rosenbaum and this big Rosh Yeshiva, and everybody was following to hear what he had to say, any stories, any halachas, anything interesting. They're sitting around the table, they're about to make Kiddush. And David Rosenbaum says, wait a second, there's somebody missing. And everybody looks around, like all the guests that were supposed to be there were there. He said, Label's not here. Now, Label was a big, fat, heavy guy who never got married. You know, every shul has that one Rahmanas case. We all know that. You know, you come into a shul, everything looks great, but there's always this one guy who's, it's like, it's a Rahmanas, it's a pity on him. Now, Label used to eat by David Rosenbaum every Friday night, but everybody forgot about him because the Rosh Yeshiva was here. So they were all walking home with David Rosenbaum and the Rosh Yeshiva, and they were coming home. And David is about to make Kiddush. And he says, we can't make Kiddush. Label's not here. So somebody said, okay, somebody will get him, but let's make Kiddush because everybody's here. So listen to what he said. He said, if we make Kiddush and somebody goes back to get Label, and he's brought in, everybody's going to be looking at him when he comes in, and he's going to feel that he's like interrupting in the middle of the meal. None of us are going to make Kiddush until somebody goes back and brings him back. And you know who the one who went to bring him back? Aaron. Aaron Rosenbaum. His father sent him, you bring him back. Tell him we're not starting Kiddush until he comes. And that's how Aaron did that Shabbos so many years later when he was an adult, because he learned it from his father. So what you are in a school that is named after a person of chesed. So whatever you do the rest of your life, you always have to remember your source of inspiration is Bais Aharon. And Bais Aharon, and it's so amazing that it's named after Aharon, because we know in the Torah, Aharon was Ohev Shalom V'Roidev Shalom, that he loved peace and he ran after peace. And he was friendly with people, and he always looked to make friends. And that's why I had spoken to Rabbi Schwartz numerous times. What topic should I speak about? And when I realized, of course, that I'm coming to Bais Aharon, that's the only topic that we could talk about. And that's chesed. And you're going to hear some amazing things, life-changing things, things that you will remember forever. And one day you're going to think about this Thursday, the last day of Hanukkah in 2023, one of the darkest Hanukkahs we've ever had. Dark because of the Israeli war and all the people that are being killed and wounded by the Rishonim Hamas. But we're going to remember this last day of Hanukkah because we're going to hear some great stuff, as we just heard about Aaron and Rosalind Rosenbaum. So, the pasuk tells us, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. That's a pasuk in Tilim Peites, pasuk Gimel, that the world is built on Chesed. So some say it's referring to Hashem. Hashem does so many good things for all of us. I don't see anybody here on a respirator. I don't see anybody here on a ventilator. I don't see anybody on breathing apparatus. Baruch Hashem, all you guys can run, sing, talk, play basketball, do a lot of great stuff. So who do we thank? Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Hashem builds Chesed. He gives us a great school, a great family, great friends, great rebbeim. That's really what we have to stop and think about. But sometimes people understand Olam Chesed Yibana means that we all do Chesed for each other. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a Rebbe, like Rabbi Schwartz, right? If he needs food, he's got to go to the grocer. And if the grocer needs clothes, he has to go to the tailor. And if the tailor has a kid that's sick, he's got to go to the doctor. And if the doctor has a child that has to be educated, he's going to come to Bais, he's going to come to Rabbi Schwartz. So Olam Chesed Yibana, it's like a big circle. We all need each other. So I want to tell you a story that happened to me. And it's difficult to tell this story because it's one of the saddest moments of my life. But we're going to see something amazing. We're going to see how great each one of us can become. When I was 21, now none of you here are 21, so I mean, of course the Rebbe's, but so 21 you think is old, and 47 you think is way old, right? But Mit Hashem, you'll get past that age, you'll see how young 47 is. My father died, he was 47, and I was 21. I'm the oldest of 7 children, and my father was a mohel. A mohel means somebody who does a bris on a baby. If any of you guys don't have a bris, you know, I can still take care of you, but I'm sure you're all taken care of, at least I hope so. But anyway, but the point is, so my father was a mohel, and I knew that if he dies, I'm gonna have to leave school, I'll have to leave the yeshiva, and I'm gonna have to support my mother and my 6 younger brothers and sisters, because I was the oldest. And I was terrified that he was gonna die, because he had cancer of the lung, but he never smoked. And sure enough, unfortunately, on Shmini Atzeres of 1966, my father died. Now, he couldn't do brisson anymore since June of 66. I can't believe it, just last night. It was like so embarrassing. My granddaughter got engaged, so I was at the Vort, the engagement, and a guy comes over to me and he says, how long are you doing brisses? I said, well, how old are you? He said, I'm 57. I said, that's how many years I'm doing it. I said to the guy, what's your birthday? He said, August 66. I said, you know, I hate to tell you this, but you were one of my first, because I started in July of 66. So I may have done 10, you know, and he was my 11th. I told him I'd look it up. I didn't get a chance because I was coming to the plane. But, you know, it's unbelievable. But anyway, so, but the point was, I knew that most people are not going to take a 21-year-old kid as a mile. I would come into a house and a grandmother would take a look at me, she almost fainted. And that's what he told me, by the way. He said, my father almost fainted when you walked in. He thought your father was coming because he called Rabbi Krohn. Now, I wasn't going to say I wasn't Rabbi Krohn. I was Rabbi Krohn, but I wasn't Rabbi Abraham Krohn, right? And then I showed up, and he told me that his father was sweating throughout the whole bris. It was this kid doing the bris. People would take a look at me. Your grandmother would say, Rabbi, you look so young. So I would say, well, the baby's also young. You know, trying to make a little joke out of it. But the point was, Baruch Hashem, there were people who took me, but it was very, very difficult. So one day in shul, after Shacharis, a guy comes over to me. His name is Mr. Chaim Israel. His son just wrote me that it was his yahrzeit a couple days ago. And he gives me an envelope. I said, what is this? He said, open it, you'll see. Now, don't forget, this is 1966. I opened the envelope. There was $1,500. It's a lot of money. I said, Mr. Israel, thank you so much, but, you know, we're not poor. I don't need tzedakah. He said, no, this is not tzedakah. This is a loan. I said, a loan? So when do I pay back? I'll never ask you. Whenever you want, you can pay me back. I said, listen, you know, I'm living at home. I wasn't married yet. I was 21. So I said, if my mother wants to accept the money, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm going to bring it back to you tomorrow. I come home. I say, Ma, you're not going to believe this. Mr. Israel just gave us $1,500. She said, we're not beggars. We don't eat tzedakah. I said, Ma, that's what I told him. But he said it's a loan. So when do we pay it back? Whenever we want. Now, the truth is we really did need the money. Just we were embarrassed to take it. But if it's a loan, so fine, we'll pay it back. 2 years later, I was 23, and I was doing more brisson. People like Aharon Rosenbaum, you know, had confidence because they knew my father. So they had confidence in me and others. And I went back with the money, and I'm ready to give it to Mr. Israel. He says, I'm not taking it. I said, what do you mean you're not taking it? You said it's a loan. If it was stuck, I never would have taken it. My mother and I, we wouldn't have taken it. He said, sit down, I want to tell you a story. And he says, he's talking about himself. And that was so embarrassing for him to tell me this. Now, he was the richest guy in our shul. And overnight, he lost all his money. A couple years before that. He made some bad business investments, and it was awful. He said about himself, do you remember? He said when he went bankrupt? I said, yeah, I remember. I was a early teenager. He said, I want to tell you what happened. He said, I lost a tremendous amount of money. And one day there was a guy in our neighborhood. He didn't daven in our shul, Dr. Lewenstein, and he davened in another shul. And he came and he gave me money. And I said to him, what do you mean? I'm not a beggar. I don't need charity. He said, no, it's a loan. So I said to him, what you said to me, when do I pay it back? He said, I will never ask you, whenever you want to. And sure enough, a few years later, I got back on my feet, and I brought him back the money, and he said he's not taking it. I said to him, what do you mean you're not taking it? You said it's a loan. He said, it is a loan. So I said, okay, I want to pay it back. He said, no, this is how you're going to pay it back. One day you're going to find a family that needs the money, and you give them that money. That's how you pay me back, by giving another family that needs the money. And when they come to pay you back, that's what you're going to tell them. They should pay it to another family. And that's what Mr. Israel said to me. He said, Lewenstein gave me the money, and now I'm giving it to you. And now you and your mother, whenever it is, you'll find the right family that needs the money, and you'll pay it. You give it to them. And then when they come to pay you, you'll tell them they pass it on. And I call that story in one of the Maggid books called Link in the Chain, because we're all links in the chain of Chesed. Now, you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you, but some of you guys are going to be very rich. I don't know which ones. Maybe you. Who knows? Or maybe you. Never know. And you're going to have money. And when Hashem gives you money, this is how you have to think. That Hashem gives you money. Not that you should become rich and famous, but that you should live for other people. That's what Aharon Rosenbaum did. He didn't have to open up a school for 40, 50 kids. And then today there's a great yeshiva in Bergen County that's also named after him. I've spoken at that school numerous times. We have here in Miami, Aharon. It's all because of that one person who decided, you know something, I got to do something for Klal Yisrael. And that's what we come here today on this last day of Hanukkah. We are all links in the chain. Of course, basketball, the Dolphins, all the stuff, that's really what you're into today. And nobody can blame them. In my day, I can still tell you the lineup of the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1955. Now to you, that sounds like 500 years ago. But to me, that's like yesterday. And all the players that you guys love, that's what life is all about. Steve Curry, all this, you love it. And why not? But that's not what life is all about in the future. Life is going to be, Mitzvah Hashem, you're going to go to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to learn there, you're going to grow, and you'll get married, and you'll build a family, and you'll have a business. And like this gentleman, Mr. Dagmy, what he does, his life is for Klal Yisrael. He doesn't have to do half the stuff that he does. He's a successful businessman, but all he wants to do is spread Torah. So he's not teaching himself, but he's getting other people from all over to come to do it. And that's what we have to learn today. We are part of Klal Yisrael. And when we come in Bais Aharon, that's what we're learning. We're all in this together. Now, I want to tell you an amazing thing. Such a beautiful pshat. The Torah tells us, all of you know the story, that Moshe Rabbeinu saw the bush, it was burning, and then the pasuk tells us, Vayar Hashem saw kisor liris. He turned to look at that bush that was burning, and it wasn't getting consumed. And then it says Hashem called him. So the Medrash asked, everybody would look. If you saw a fire, God forbid, outside right now, everybody would look. You see or hear a Hatzolah ambulance, everybody's going to look. So why does the Torah tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to look, and then Hashem called him? And the Medrash tells us something fabulous. The Medrash tells us that these two words, sor liros, that he turned to look, was not only that he turned to look, of course he looked, but that was his personality. He wasn't only concerned about himself. He turned to look at the problems of other people. that in this base medrash, there are a lot of kids here that are going through stuff. Everybody goes through stuff. Not everybody has the family you have. Not everybody has the talent you have, and everybody has the money you have. What Hashem wants from all of us is that we should stop thinking only about ourselves. Become a Sor Lirois. Sometimes there's that kid in the class who sits in the back, or sometimes that kid in the class who looks sad, and you know he looks sad because you've seen him every day. So you know what you got to do? Put your arm around him and say, "What's going on? Let's go for a walk. Let's talk." And you put your arm around somebody and make them feel special. That's what Sor Lirois is. And that's why Hashem turned to him. Because what the Medrash says, when he said Sor Lirois, when the Torah tells us Sor Lirois, it means that he looked to see the problems of his brothers and sisters in Mitzrayim. That's why Hashem made him the leader. I want to show you something amazing. You know, many of you certainly know that less than 2 years ago, Reb Chaim Kanievsky passed away. He was the Gadol Ador, the brightest person, the one who knew the most Torah. So there were many, 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 many things that he said. Here's my favorite. I can't get over this. All of us know the story that when Yitzchak was about to die, so he wanted to give a bracha to Yaakov, right? But he wanted to give a bracha to Esav because he saw Esav was a tzaddik. And he said to Esav, "Go bring me some food and then I'll give you the bracha." So the pasuk tells us, I want you to watch this and tell me if you notice something unusual. The pasuk says, "Vayove la'aviv." He brought the food to his father. Take a look at these words. Anybody, what do you see unusual? Go ahead.
It says Vayibo backwards on the other word.
What do you mean? How'd you figure that out so fast? Well, explain to me what you're saying. You're right.
It says Vav Yud Beis Aleph, and it says Vav Yud Beis Aleph.
You see how you see Vayove la'aviv, and you can read it backwards. Vayove la'aviv. Does anybody know in English what those words are called? Begins with a P.
Parents.
What?
Parents.
Well, no, parents is aviv. Yeah, but it's called a palindrome. Do you know some words that are palindromes, like mom, pop, radar, race car? You can read it frontwards and backwards. So, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, we've seen these words 1,000 times. Who thought of it that it was a palindrome? He did. And what do you think you could learn from this lesson that these two words are a palindrome? Anybody can think of something? What do you say? What do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, that it has something to do with
That what?
your father.
I'm sorry?
It has something to do with your parents.
That's right. Go ahead. What about it? You're on the way.
So that, if you respect your parents and
You got it. Halfway. If you respect your parents, your kids are going to respect you. Very smart. Rabbi Schwartz, you're doing a good job here. That's amazing. Okay. Vayove la'aviv. Right. The way you treat your parents, that's how your children are going to treat you. And that's how it is in life. If you become a Sor Lirois type of person, that you look at the problems of others, then others are going to look at the problems of you, and they're going to try to help you. That's really what life is all about, and that's what being a Yid is all about. So, where's my coffee? I had it something. Right? Tell you a little story about coffee. Great story. Now, by the way, I want to tell you that I wrote a Haggadah, commentary on Haggadah, and I named it after David Rosenbaum, Aaron's father. And I'm going to send you two. One for the school, one for the Bais Medrash, and one, for the library, and one for yourself. And then I also wrote the story about labels. So, b'li neder, I'm going to send one for you and also one for the guys here. But I want to tell you a great story. This happened in a Sephardi shul in Eretz Yisrael. And what happened was that there was a rabbi who would come early in the morning, the rabbi of the synagogue, and he would learn Torah, either Chumash or Gemara, with 15 people. And they would learn for 3/4 of an hour, and then they davened. And there was a guy, a Sephardi guy, who didn't really understand Torah that well, but he respected these 15 who came. And he brought everyone into the shul. He brought them coffee or tea, whatever they wanted. One guy wanted coffee with milk, one guy wanted coffee with sugar, without sugar, decaffeinated. Another guy wanted tea with milk, tea without milk, all kinds. Herbal tea, whatever. He had a whole list and he brought everybody, but he only gave a half a cup. And people said to him, why don't you give us a full cup? Everybody wants a full cup of tea or coffee. He said, look, the kitchen's right there. You need more? I'll give you. But he's only given a half a cup. One day, he wasn't feeling so well. So he goes into his son's bedroom and he says, listen, I know you're davening in another shul in the morning, but I got to give the coffee and tea to these guys who come to learn. Could you go, I'll give you the list and just prepare the coffee and bring it before they start learning. He said, Abba, yeah, for sure, I'll do it. And the kid comes to the shul, he's preparing this whole tray of coffee and tea. And as he's about to walk in the shul, his father's there. He says, Abba, what are you doing here? I thought you said you don't feel well. I forgot to tell you something. He said, what did you forget to tell me? Half a cup. He said, what? You only give a half a cup to people? Why do you only give a half a cup? That's what I do. He said, you got to explain it to me. He said, okay, I'll tell you, but don't tell anybody. He says, you see, there are two old men in the shul whose hands shake. They have Parkinson's. If I would fill up the cup to the top, when they held the coffee or the tea, it would spill all over the papers, the Gemara, the table, their clothes. So like this, it would be embarrassing. So I give everybody a half a cup. Let them yell at me, what do I care? But I don't give a full cup so nobody will be embarrassed. And if I gave everybody a full cup and I gave them a half a cup, then they would feel that they're being pointed out because they have Parkinson's, like Label, who would feel bad. So that's why I'm careful about that. That's what chesed is. Chesed is sor lirois, to look at somebody else. Now I want to tell you one more great story and with that we'll close. And this story was told to me by the family to whom it happened. One of the greatest stories ever. What happened was that there's a group of 5 guys in Flatbush. They all grew up in the same high school, just like you guys are growing up in the same high school. And they got married, and they stayed in the same neighborhood, same shul, and they each had a bunch of children. And every year they would go down to Orlando. During this winter break, they would come down here to Florida, and they would have an apartment. They had arcade games, a private pool, and every year they went together. One year, it was already after they had gone, one of the fathers said, I'm making a Sudas Hoidah. Sudas Hoidah means a party of thanks. I'm giving thanks to Hashem. So everybody said, why are you making a party? He said, come, you'll see, I'll explain it. And he explained the most incredible thing. He said that one day, the women decided they're going to go shopping. There's a lot of shopping down here. So the guy said, okay, good. We'll take the kids to the pool and we'll go swimming. Fine. They finished swimming. The kids went inside. The fathers went upstairs. The mothers were out shopping. And all of a sudden, the father who's telling this story at the Sudas Haidah, my younger 8-year-old son realized that my 3-year-old son is missing. And he saw that the door to the backyard is open. So instinctively, he ran out and he sees the kid is face down in the pool. And he runs inside and he's screaming, my baby's in the pool. And the guy who's talking says, we have 5 guys here. All of us were upstairs. One guy went down to check on the kids, how they're doing. That was the only guy who knew CPR. That was the only guy who was a Hatzalah member. And when he heard, he comes down the stairs and the kid is yelling that his brother's in the pool. He jumped into the pool. He ran into the backyard, jumped in the pool, took the kid out, laid him out on the ground, did CPR. Mamish brought him back to life and saved him. And I shouldn't make a party. I shouldn't be grateful. Hashem could have made any of us go down. And we couldn't have saved the kid. He saved him. That's why I'm saying thank you to Hashem, because Hashem picked out which guy should go down. Now, when he finished speaking, the wife of the Hatzalah guy who saved the kid said, now I want to speak. Everybody's wondering, what does she want to say? She says, Rabotai, let me tell you something. My husband, the Hatzalah guy, who saved that little boy, and we weren't going to come this year. We've come every year, but this year we had a very difficult year in business. And we couldn't afford to come with our 4 kids. But that father, he called us. I don't know how he knew that we weren't coming. He said, what do you mean you're not coming? We're all brothers and sisters. I'm paying for you and your husband and your 4 kids. He paid 6 tickets to go down to Orlando. So he thought he was doing us a favor, right? Because he was paying for 6 tickets for our family. It turned out he was doing himself the biggest favor, because the guy he brought down was not the guy who saved his son. That's Sorgerais. And you know where that stands? Right here. One more palindrome. Just absolutely incredible. V'nosnu. V'nosnu means, and they shall give. When you give to others, the Baal HaTurim says, you're not losing anything. If you give of your money, of your time, of your talent, of your heart, one day somebody's going to give it back to you. Let's all remember. We're going to take a picture together, and I'm going to put it in the newspaper next week. You'll all be famous. You're going to be in the Ated. And let's all remember that we came together on Zois Hanukkah, the last day of Hanukkah, and we learned about Aharon Rosenbaum and his father of David, and that's why the Haggadah is called as Tzemach David, after him. And that, let's remember, we're all in it together. We're part of a big nation of Klal Yisrael, and Hashem gives us things so that we should be able to share with each other. Rabbi Schwartz, I want to thank you so much for inviting me. I thank all of you for being such great listeners, and I'm sure the gentleman right over there is a Lubavitcher Chassid, right? I can see. I see it on your face. Okay, you should have great atzlacha. You should be Mekadosh Shem Shamayim like the Rebbe would want. And guys, come, let's take a picture together.